Now we're a little farther down the pond, a little bit closer to the dam, the beaver dam. But this is an area that the beavers are really active in cutting small saplings and the tops of trees for their winter food cache. So here, all these stubs are fairly recent cuts by beaver. Right, hopefully you can see all of these going into the forest. This is about, I don't know, 30 to 50 meters away from the edge of the pond. Walk around through here. They've made their own little clear cut right here, cutting down all these yellow birch, and there's some cherry that they've cut as well. Clemmy! There's my dog. I wasn't sure where she was. Pardon that yell. They also cut this great big yellow birch tree. So again, catkins on the yellow birch. These are going to be a food for grouse and then for a bunch of other overwintering songbirds. All this has been cut within the last few months. And then this great big yellow birch, there's a little bit of road noise on the forest road, but this great big yellow birch, which is probably close to 20 inches in diameter at the base where the beavers were cutting it, fell. You can kind of see their drag path, and right here is their path to the pond. So they dig these little canals, they just excavate them to give themselves water access to their foraging grounds. All right, so beavers feel most comfortable in the water, and then when they've cut this brush, they don't want to be dragging it constantly over land. So in these areas, it's worth their effort to dig these little canals that get them away from the pond, and then they can float, they can swim with the brush and take that all the way to the pond. Right, so here's the canal, it ends right there, but it's, I don't have I'll break off a stick. It's fairly deep. All right, now that we've had rain, that is 18 inches or so deep. They can float these tree branches all the way down to the pond. So they can be swimming, they can go under these fallen logs. This is the beaver dam itself, the main one that holds back the biggest pond. But then they've got this canal, this little channel that goes around the edge of the pond and all the way up as close as they can get to their feeding area. And right down here at the very end, there's some fresh cut and peeled sticks. Right, this is what beavers eat during the winter. They're active all winter long under the ice. They swim out from their lodge underwater and go to their underwater food cache. They store these tree branches, these tree tops and the small trees they cut and the branches. They store them underwater, under the ice, and they can access those all winter long. So they're active under the ice quite a bit. And as we remember from our trapping lab, Malcolm was talking about how you can, you know, there's a lot of under ice beaver trapping that goes on where you can follow their channels, either lines of bubbles or lines of clear ice, or you can kind of, if you're trapping an area that you're pretty familiar with, you may be even able to mark some of the channels prior to the ice setting in, so you know about where to set your traps. But this is quite an elaborate operation. Right, there's a huge cherry tree that they're halfway through. All these things have been cut within the last year or so. There's some natural blowdown. Right, that big yellow birch was pretty impressive the first time I saw it. But here's another one. They've got a little canal dug as far as you can from the pond, and then you can see how the beaver comes over this log That's as far as he's going to dig, but you can see how there's a mud stain here in the path. The beaver comes over the log. Up here, he's cut this beech tree for some reason. It got hung up in that birch. That's what happens to me sometimes when I'm cutting trees too. They get caught in a fork like that. And so he'll trim off some of these lower branches. And then he's been working on this big black cherry tree. And eventually that one will topple over. And if it does, in a timely manner, he'll be able to strip the top branches and add those to the food cache. He's also been working on this beech tree as well. And so they're just going to fall. Beavers will continue to gnaw on these. These are pretty fresh actions here. You cut down this maple as well, and then they'll come in here and eventually try to get some of those upper branches and then drag them back. It's working on that yellow birch. So a lot of recent activity in this part of the pond. Beavers are preparing for the winter ice over season.